Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donahue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy. Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort and creepitude, as always, is the amazing and not broken Sonia Mansfield. Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend.
So, what happened to you?
So I was out walking my dogs, my two dogs, and Max, the big one, saw another dog across the street. He got really excited. He ran around me like in a circle, tied me up with his leash, and dragged me into the street and knocked me down. What a creep. Such a creep.
Not a good boy.
Not a good boy this time. Damn it, Max. So both of my elbows are fractured, but they are stable and I don't need surgery or anything like that. So I'm wearing my little elbow braces and minimal typing for right now, but I am on the road to recovery. So thank you everyone for all your good vibes. I super appreciate it. I needed it. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, you guys. I'm feeling 22. 2021 was not my fave, but I am feeling 22. I hope so.
Yeah. You can find us on Facebook. We do have a basic Facebook page, but just so you know, we don't really check it that often. It's just a place for people to complain about our salty language.
Mm-hmm.
I have a private Facebook group. You do have to answer some questions to join the group, but it's filled with amazing people. So just type in What a Creep Podcast Group. Give it a try. Give it a go. See what happens. We're on Twitter at CreepPod because somebody had What a Creep for 10 years and never used it.
Creep!
We're on Instagram, What a Creep Podcast. We have an old-timey email, What a Creep Podcast, spelled it out, at gmail.com. You can send suggestions for creeps and non-creeps, and you can request stickers. We would happily drop some stickers off in the mail for you. I am going to do another batch of those next week, so if you're interested, please send us an email. And Sonia, what can you tell them about our website?
You can go to whatacreeppodcast.com and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our podcast, but we're afraid to ask. It has links to almost all of our episodes because I think our first 3 seasons are behind the Patreon wall. Indeed. Our Patreon page is linked also on the website. And if you join, you get a shout out on the show. You will normally get an email newsletter when my elbows aren't broken. And and there is also a link to our merch shop, and it's not too late to order Christmas gifts for people if you want, or holiday gifts, whatever you celebrate, Festivus, winter solstice, whatever. You can order stuff from our merch shop, and we have t-shirts and journals and tote bags and all kinds of cool stuff. I love our stuff. It's really great. And we are going to be sending out holiday cards to our Patreon people. And so be on the lookout.
And if you're overseas, it might take a couple of weeks. Just remember that.
Yes, it will take a while. I'm going to design the cards this week, and we're going to figure out who will mail those out for me. It'll happen.
And you did mention our Patreon page. On our Patreon page, we have our first 3 seasons. We put out a couple of bonus episodes every month. We also have a newsletter that goes out when Sonia's elbows aren't broken. But I forgot to mention, Sonia, this month we're going to send out a couple of bonus episodes for everybody. We're talking to a couple of podcasters that are really cool that we want you to meet and say hello to. Some you might know already.
This is really exciting.
It's very exciting. So you'll find that out. Patreon new members, the newest ones are Amanda, Lindsay, Beth, Melissa, Katie, Jackie, Deborah, Devin, Holly.
Oh my gosh, so many.
So much. Thank you all so much. We really, really appreciate it. And I just want to give a very quick shout out to the people who left 5-star reviews. That's
Yeah.
Doza May, Molane, and Florence. And thank you so much. And I'll look for the others, but we really do appreciate it. Every once in a while, we get someone who sends us a 1-star just for being a dick, but we're fine. We laugh it off. But it's nice for you guys to chip in and do that. We really appreciate it.
Every once in a while, we get a review from someone who doesn't even listen to the podcast. He's just like, I don't like the idea. 1 star.
I don't cotton to it. I'm just going to leave 1 star.
It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. 1 star. Me.
Wah, wah, wah. All right. Sonia, are you ready? Today, we're talking about Robert Durst. People first met him in The Jinx, which was an HBO docuseries from 2015. Sonia, did you see it?
Yeah, I did. It was so good. So good.
This is the first media interview with Robert Durst in many, many years. He's the son of a billionaire real estate magnate that's not named Trump. His father was Seymour Durst. At the time, the then 72-year-old Robert Durst had been accused of 3 murders in his life and seemed to use his money and privilege to avoid any real penalty. The filmmaker Andrew Jarecki was obsessed with Durst's story. In 2010, he had a film called All Good Things, and it starred Ryan Gosling and Kirsten Dunst. Did you see that movie?
I did not. Did you?
Yes. It was inspired by Durst's first marriage to a woman named Kathy McCormick. She disappeared in 1982 and was declared dead in 1990. Anyway, Andrew Jarecki somehow meets Robert Durst and says to him, "Hey, I made a movie about you, kind of. Would you be interested in doing an interview with me?" And Robert Durst said yes. And then,
so stupid.
He's really stupid, you guys. He
I
really,
mean, he's actually really smart, but this was a stupid call.
He makes some really poor choices here, which we will find out. But up until then, he seemed to be made of Teflon. Nothing could stick to him. He is currently serving time for first-degree murder for life. He's about 76 right now. He just battled COVID, 2 kinds of cancer. Good. You'll find out why in a minute. He's going to be on trial soon, hopefully, for the murder of his first wife. Will he make it long enough to face a jury of his peers again? Who knows? But let's hear about his story. And the trigger warnings are murder, death by suicide, mental illness, and domestic violence. And my sources are The Jinx, HBO, Without a Trace Inside the Robert Durst Case by Marion Collins, Murder of a Mafia Daughter by Kathy Scott. I went all in with this.
Yeah, you did.
Discovery Channel, Robert Durst, an ID murder mystery. That's 2 parts. Vanity Fair Confidential, Season 1, Episode 2, The Fugitive Heir. Also, of course, Wikipedia, Associated Press, and the Boston Globe. Robert Alan Durst was born April 12th. Excuse me. I just burped. I like Durst.
You did. You're pulling a
I
Durst.
pulled a Durst. Robert Alan Durst was born April 12, 1943 to Seymour Durst, a wealthy developer in New York City, and Bernice Herstein. Seymour's father, Joseph Durst, the story about him, was that he came to America with $3 sewn into his jacket. He was either from Poland or Austria. I've read 2 different places. This was in 1902. And Joseph Durst worked in the garment industry for many, many years. He saved every single penny, and he had the good idea that New York City, in the center of the city, there wasn't a lot of development. People kind of lived on the outskirts, or they started moving to the suburbs. And Seymour's grandfather, Robert Durst's, grandfather came to America, was working in the garment district, and noticed there's all these places on 6th Avenue and 3rd Avenue that could have been office buildings. And nobody thought to use that for that. So he started buying them. So Seymour runs the family business. This is Robert Durst's father. Robert has 3 siblings, Douglas, Tommy, and Wendy. He's the oldest. When the children were young, the family moved to Scarsdale, which is where Bernice was from. But after her 4th birth, she started exhibiting signs and symptoms of depression. She stopped taking care of herself, and she let nannies and the staff watch her kids.
Like postpartum depression?
Yeah, they didn't have any kind of, there wasn't that diagnosis at the time.
Correct.
They would just say it's the baby blues or something. She had hid up in her room. So she was really it was intense for her.
Yeah.
On the night of November 8th, 1950, 32-year-old Bernice either fell or jumped from her home's roof, and she died immediately. It was late at night. It was raining. Her husband called the fire department. They sent a ladder up to her, and she either, like I said, jumped or fell. But she was up there for a while. Many years later, during the Jinx, Robert said he watched her death. But
that'll mess you up.
It'll mess you up. I mean, there are people that say, no way, the kids weren't even close to it. They took the kids away. I don't know. I mean, I have 3 siblings myself, and we all have a different version of things that happened right in front of us.
Yes.
But it will mess you up.
For sure.
When Bernice died, Seymour withdrew just into his work to deal with the pain. He never remarried, and he expected Robert to run the organization one day. Robert had kind of behavior problems after this.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. He was a pretty normal teenager at Scarsdale High School, and then he decided to go to Lehigh University, which is in Pennsylvania, and he got his BA in economics in 1965. And his father's like, great, now come work for me in New York City. He's like, nah, it's the 60s. I want to be in California. Which I don't blame him. Yeah.
Right. That's where I'd want to be.
That's where I go.
That's where I am.
He enrolled in the doctoral program at UCLA. And this is where he meets his new best friend, Susan Berman. And let me tell you about Susan Berman. Susan was born in 1945 in Las Vegas. She was raised in Las Vegas, and her dad was known as Davy Berman the Jew. He was one of the top mobsters in Las Vegas. He got in on Vegas when it first started. He's there with Bugsy Siegel, with all of those dudes. And he knew all of the mob guys, and she was raised with these mob guys. And she has just tons of pictures of her as a little girl and all these grown men, and having dinner with them. And her dad hired bodyguards. She knew they were bodyguards. She thought they were uncles, but she was constantly being guarded. And Davy Berman was known. Davy, excuse me. He was known.
I'm sorry, Mr. the Jew. Please tell me he was Jewish. That would be a weird nickname.
Berman,
if
yes.
He was.
Yeah. I'm going to take a wild guess. Davy Berman was known for being able to choke a person to death with one hand.
Ooh, that's some Darth Vader shit.
He's a tough ass, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Both of her parents died when she was young. Under strange circumstances. He was recovering from an operation. Her mother had an overdose. She never really knew their full story. And she was an only child, and she wound up being raised by relatives, and she went to boarding schools and things like that. So by the time she's winding up in UCLA, she meets with Robert. They're kind of 2 peas in a pod. They're both kind of odd, and he's a little socially awkward, and she's super extroverted. Mm-hmm. And they have this very platonic relationship. They're like siblings, and that's how they describe each other. She's bubbly. She's intelligent. She's very talkative. He's a little quieter. He's a total pothead. They both have money from their families. So they party with rock stars and live the Southern California life. But Robert's father convinces them, dude, you got to give this up at some point, and you got to come back to the family. So Robert says, all right, I'm going to leave UCLA, because he wasn't even going to classes anymore.
Right.
But he says, I want to start a business in Vermont. And that's like, what are you talking about? He moves to Vermont in 1969, and he starts a health food store called All Good Things, because he wanted to continue the hippie lifestyle.
Got it.
But he also wanted to be close to his parents. He wanted to be, near his dad and his siblings. Yeah. He's living in Vermont, and he visits New York City frequently. On one of these occasions, he meets a dental hygienist. Her name is Kathy McCormick. And here's her story. Kathleen McCormick was born into a big Irish Catholic family. She's the youngest of 5. In New Hyde Park, Long Island. She was born in 1950. She was pretty intelligent. She graduates college with a 4.0 while working as a dental hygienist.
Damn.
Yeah. She's supported herself since she was 19 years old. Her father died when she was 18. She's very vivacious, beautiful, and everybody loves her. On their second date, Robert asks her to move to Vermont. She doesn't accept right away.
Sure.
Yeah. He love bombs.
Mm-hmm.
They start dating. She moves up to Vermont, hangs out with him. And in 1972, Robert's father convinces him, you've got to sell this store and come and learn the ropes of the Durst Company. I'm getting older. If you don't do it, I'm going to have to give it to one of your brothers. So Robert says, fine. He and Kathy go to New York City, 1973, and they get married on his 30th birthday.
All right.
Susan comes out for the wedding, and she decides that, and they become not a throuple, but a threesome.
Got it.
She's a friend of the couple. So she's moving out there to begin her career as a writer. She still has some money in her trust fund, but she has a total length of phobias about living in New York City. She has a thing like she locks her doors multiple times because of what her father went through.
Right.
She nails shut her windows. She has such a fear of heights and elevators. She can't go near windows. And she has a panic attack driving over a bridge.
I feel like New York's not a good fit.
No. But she meets people. She's so effervescent. She's so bubbly that people kind of look over it. They think it's kind of quirky and cute. So people, so if they're in a cab and they're going over the Brooklyn Bridge, somebody will put a jacket over her head, basically, just to calm her down.
Yeah.
But people deal with it.
Like a parakeet.
Exactly.
Night, Susan. It's nighttime.
But she becomes friends with people like Lorraine Newman from Saturday Night Live, and she knows all the editors and things like that, and actors, and she dives right in, and they have this whole social life. Kathleen graduates from nursing school, and she enrolls in med school, and Susan joins them wherever they go out. And this being the 1970s means there are drugs involved. Mm-hmm. There's discos. There's lots of dancing and partying late into the night. Yes. They also travel extensively, and they enjoy the perks of being rich. And to be clear, she didn't know how rich he was when she first met him, because the Dursts are different from the Trumps. They don't put their names on everything. They don't take limousines everywhere. Like, that's all verboten to them.
Right.
You know,
well, she's like, he's the dude who owns a health food store.
Yeah. She didn't know.
She doesn't know. Yeah.
She said his dad had some properties in New York City. And if you look at these properties, you're not going to be like, oh my God, this person's rich. You're just like, oh, it's a big building. Anyway.
Right.
There's a rift in the marriage starting in 1976 when Kathy finds out she's pregnant. Robert forces her to get an abortion. He refuses to have kids.
Does he say why? He just doesn't want kids.
He just doesn't want kids. They start having other kinds of arguments, and this is where he starts beginning to hit and beat her.
An asshole.
He's an asshole. She's having difficulty concentrating, and now her grades are going to hell. On January 31st, 1982, Robert said that he put her on a commuter train to New York City from their home in South Salem, New York, which is up by Westchester. They also had a co-op in the city. Kathy had made plans to meet up with a friend, Gilberte Najami, but Kathy never met up with her. None of her friends heard from her for several days, and they started getting worried. And they're calling Robert, and they're calling everybody. And Robert didn't seem all that worried. He was like, oh, we had a fight. She just went home. She's just like, you know. And she worked at a hospital, and somebody called the hospital. A woman called the hospital and said she was Kathy and that she wasn't going to make it that day. Several days go by before Robert finally goes to the police to put in a missing persons report. The main cop decides that they talk to. He thinks that Kathy must be a drug addict, and therefore she's just hiding out with a new boyfriend. They never search her South Salem home. Susan acts as Robert's communications person. She's the person that speaks for him to the police and to the press.
Not suspicious at all.
Not suspicious at all. Robert hires a private detective and then fires him. Robert says that he's offering a $100,000 reward for information, and then he'll quietly drop it to $15,000. Like, there's all kinds of stupid, shady shit going on with this. He's not cooperating, and they have no evidence. Like, she just disappears.
When the husband doesn't cooperate, yeah, it's a little bit of a red flag.
Yeah. You should know that the Durst family never connects with Kathy's family. Never calls.
So shitty.
Never sends flowers. Never like checks in to say how you're doing. Do you know anything? Nothing.
That's so shitty.
Yeah.
It's because they know.
3 weeks before she disappeared, she asked for a divorce. And instead, and he canceled her credit cards. So she was financially stuck.
Yeah.
Also at this time, Robert Durst was having an affair with Prudence Farrow, who was Mia Farrow's sister.
Oh.
And the person that the Beatles wrote Dear Prudence for.
Oh.
It goes
I didn't know this part.
For 3 years. And Susan and Prudence and Kathy would be on the phone with each other, and Prudence would be like, leave your man, leave him for me. And Kathy would be like, no. And then finally Kathy's like, fine, I want a divorce, but I want a $250,000 divorce settlement, which for him, that was just too much money. It'd be like $1 million today.
Yeah.
He should have just
But they
paid
are
it.
so rich.
Yeah, yeah. It's ludicrous how rich these people are. One of Kathy's friends was so concerned that she drove up to South Salem and broke into the home. Just out of desperation, because nobody was doing it. Nobody was doing anything.
Yeah.
And she was worried about, it's like, if I disappeared, you would want to find out what happened to me. You'd break in, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
The house was ransacked, and many of Kathy's things were found in trash bags, but they didn't find anything else. And eventually the trail grows cold, and people just move on.
It sucks.
It totally sucks. Susan moves to L.A., and she writes a book called Easy Street, which is all about her life, her family, her parents and their background, all that stuff. And she gets a ton of press for it, but the sales aren't that great. You know, it's one of those things. A lot of people hear about it, but not a lot of people buy it.
Right.
By this time, she has blown through her money. She had about $4 million in 1975. So that's like $20 million now. I mean, it's like she bought drinks for everybody. She brought meals for everybody. She lived very high on the hog. And I actually have a lot of empathy for her or sympathy, whatever, because I just feel like this is somebody who never had a chance to grow up. You know, her parents died when she was young. She was an only child, and she grew up in these crazy circumstances, and she just didn't, you know, she lived life like could be over any second. And
she was probably really lonely. She probably, what she saw growing up was someone who probably paid for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And she probably thought that was the way to get people to be close to you.
Yeah. Keep people as your friend. Like that's what she knew. She tries pitching movies and TV shows about Vegas. And there's one time she had an A&E special in the mid 90s, and it did pretty well. But then after that, nothing. And she would, like I said, she would go in and have these pitch meetings, and they would say to her, they'd look at her and they see this woman in her 40s, and they'd say, well, who would we get to write it? And they would think of a guy to write for her. And this is what she...
Right, of course.
Yeah. She gets any magazine jobs that she can. And then after a very brief marriage, she moves in with a guy who has 2 older kids. They're like 10 and 12. They're not too little. And they live in a house in Brentwood, which is a pretty pricey area.
Yes. It's where OJ lived.
That's where OJ lived. He has some money, so he picks up most of the tab at the time, and his former spouse has no real interest in the kids. So Susan raises the kids. When she and the boyfriend split up, the kids move in with her.
Wow.
He had no interest. So she was a very loving person and always wanted to be a mother, and this was her one chance to be one. She gets kicked out of the Brentwood house because she can't afford it. And so she moves into this first home that she had when she first moved to California, which is in Beverly Hills, which you think Beverly Hills, everything is rich, but there's worn down stuff everywhere. And
sure. That's where Andrea Zucker lived in 90210. She lived in the bad part of Beverly Hills, wrong side of the tracks, quote unquote.
Well, so Susan moves into this house that she lived in maybe 15 years before, but now there hadn't been any repairs done on it. And it's $1,500 a month, which is in the year 2000 I'm talking about right now. And by now the kids are in college, and she's paying, you know, one of them is going to Oregon University. The other one's going to an art school. Any money she gets in, she gives to the kids and puts it to their education. So she's struggling for work, and she winds up getting far left behind in her payments on her rent. It's late in 2000. Her landlord is threatening to kick her out, and she's kind of freaked out. And around this time is when there's a new investigator in Westchester, New York, and he gets a hot tip on how Robert Durst killed his first wife, where he did it, and how he did it. And so the heat is on for Robert. The press brings it up again. What the hell happened? How the hell did this guy get away with it? Who fucked it up the first time? That kind of thing. And Robert calls Susan, and he's like, you know what? The press is on me again. I need your help. And she tells him, if you give me $100,000, I'll make sure the cops go away and the press stay off your back. And Robert says, fine. And he gives her 2 separate payments for $50,000. He'd lent her money several times in her life. A lot of people lent her money. She
as he should, though, because she literally knows where the bodies are buried.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But she's, deep financial problems. I mean, she just is not planning for the future. She's just very much in the present.
Yes.
She calls her landlord. She settles her issues. One morning on December 24th, Christmas Eve, 2000, her next door neighbors can hear her 3 fox terriers that are just barking up a storm. The neighbor's trying to call her, and they can't get her on the phone, and they haven't seen her. And so the neighbor calls the cops and says, this is weird. She comes and checks her mail a couple of times a day because she's always waiting for that check to come in. She always takes care of her dogs, like something's going on. The police come over, and they find Susan murdered. She was shot in the back of the head, execution style. On the day after Christmas, the Beverly Hills Police Department get a letter, and it was dated December 23rd, and it said, you can find a cadaver at Susan's address. A cadaver.
That's creepy.
Which is so creepy, and the word Beverly is misspelled.
Yes.
Durst goes on the run again. Somehow he winds up in Galveston, Texas, and he finds a place to rent for $300 a month. And he calls the landlord in advance and says, hi, my aunt's moving in. She's a mute woman. She's had laryngitis issues and surgery. She can't speak. So she's not going to have a phone, and she's not going to answer the door. But I'll go in and check on her and make sure she's taken care of. And he pays a year in advance, which never happens. So they're like, great, fine.
Yeah, because just in case you're wondering why someone would rent to that, because they paid a year in advance. Yes. That's why.
Well, they're like, oh, she's mute. She'll be real quiet. What's the problem?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Perfect.
So he moves to Galveston, and he has women's clothing with him, and he has wigs, and keeps a very low profile. Nobody sees this lady very often, but every once in a while her nephew shows up to take care of her.
Yes.
Right. Durst lives across the hall from a man named Morris Black. He's 72 years old, and there's not much that's known about him. He was really moody to the extreme. He yelled to all the people in the building about noise. He would follow people to their apartments yelling at them.
Yeah, he's that guy.
He felt everyone was using too much electricity, and he would knock on their doors late at night if they had all the lights on. Like, he's a real pain in the ass. He and Durst get into it one day, and then all of a sudden, Morris Black disappears.
Yeah, I might be on Robert Durst's side on this one. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
October 9th, 2001, a 12-year-old boy and his father are fishing at Galveston Bay when they discover a dismembered body.
Gross.
It's Morris Black. He is expertly dissected and cut up. And because there was no weather that day, like normally there's more stormy weather, but because there wasn't, the body was just there. Like normally it would just sink and he would disappear. Yeah. Durst is apprehended, and there is a bail for him. And it turns out that first of all, the DA in Galveston had no idea how wealthy this man was. He didn't know. A man who presents himself as a woman is actually Robert Durst. They had no idea he was as wealthy as he was. He paid a $250,000 bail. And it turns out Durst had recently married a woman named Deborah Sheridan, and it's a very platonic relationship. There's nothing really known about her.
That's like a lot of marriages.
But she's able to pay his bail, and they live together for a little bit. She doesn't talk about him. They're still technically married, but she doesn't go out for the trials or anything, but she pays his bail.
She thought she was marrying Fred Durst.
She did it for the nookie.
She did it all for the nookie.
Robert Durst shaves his head and eyebrows and takes off. He is eventually he's found.
I love those little extra details.
We have to picture this. The guy is on the run. That's the thing for like 20 years. He just takes off, and he's always looks ridiculous.
Shaves his head and eyebrows and takes off. Because he won't stand out. He won't stand out.
He's found shoplifting at a Wegmans in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He was stealing a chicken sandwich and some Band-Aids because he cut himself shaving his eyebrows. And when the police get him, they bring him to the station. They find he has $500 in cash in his pockets.
But he still was stealing stuff. What a fucking asshole. And such an asshole.
They impound his car and they find $37,000 in cash, plus a bunch of marijuana and 2 guns.
Well, it might have been a really expensive chicken sandwich.
Wegmans can be pricey. Durst is shipped back to Texas, and he hires high-profile attorneys to represent him. Durst's claim is he killed in self-defense and then freaked out and just got rid of the body the only way he knew.
Look, the only way I know how to deal with this is to murder someone and chop them up expertly and throw them in a lake. Sorry.
He claims... That's how I handle things. No, he claims Black was at his door, started arguing with him, became very irate, and he had to shoot him just in self-defense to keep him from him. He shot him twice, by the way, like 7 seconds apart. Mm-hmm. He shoots him twice. He's dead. Then he uses a paring knife, 2 saws, and an axe to dismember him.
Ew.
And like I said, he did it expertly. They were shocked at how good it was. So now we're in 2004 and there's a trial. And guess what? The jury acquits him. They decide it's self-defense. But he is given jail time for, get this, tampering with the evidence. Dismembering a body is tampering with evidence.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say he went to jail for stealing the chicken sandwich.
And the Band-Aids?
Yeah.
Those details.
That is, yeah. Chopping up a body and throwing it in the lake it's tampering with evidence. Yeah, that's
so he has
crazy.
He serves some time, and there's a lot of like he gets out of jail and he goes places he shouldn't go, and he runs into a judge from the first trial. You can read his Wikipedia page. I mean, I kind of just want to stick to the highlights here.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot.
There's a lot here. So fast forward to 2015, and after everyone sees the Jinx, and the last episode is where he's on mic and he's caught mumbling, saying, "What did you do?" "Well, kill them all, of course."
Yes.
Yeah. And so the LA district attorney is like, you know what? I really think this guy killed Susan Berman. I mean, who else had motive?
Yes.
Durst runs off to New Orleans to escape, but he's held on a weapons charge in Louisiana. He eventually pleads guilty to the gun charge and then is sent to LA to serve his jail time there while he's waiting for the trial. The trial doesn't happen until 2020 because there are multiple medical issues on the defense side and also with him himself. He's had a couple of cancer diagnoses and things like that. Still, eventually there is a verdict, and he is found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment on October 14th, 2021 for killing Susan Berman.
Good.
A week later, he was charged with the murder of Kathy McCormack Durst. We will see if he lives long enough for this trial. He had COVID, but I think he's over it now. Sad to say, Kathy's mother lived to be 102 and never learned what happened to her daughter.
That is awful. I can't even imagine.
I can't even. Yeah, I mean,
that poor woman.
Yeah, and they tried suing, but the cops said it took too long, and you did it.
Yeah,
they were just screwed over. Since then, there have been 2 other cases mentioned. One of them was in 1971. An 18-year-old girl named Lynn Schultz was a freshman at Middlebury College in Vermont. She was at the All Good Things store, then went across the street to use the phone, and she was never seen again. And then in 1997, there were 2 girls missing that were from Eureka, California. There's 18-year-old Kristen Modafferi and 16-year-old Karen Mitchell. Karen was last seen in San Francisco in 1997. Durst was in Eureka at the time of their disappearances. But his attorneys say, nah, we're not even going to talk about it. They're just fishing, whatever. And right now, he is in jail as we are speaking. He's not dead from COVID or anything else.
That is so... What the fuck?
And that is our creep this week, Robert Durst.
Dude, good job, Margot. He's such a fucking creep. He's such a creep.
He's such an asshole.
And if you haven't seen the Jinx, y'all should watch it because it's so well done. And just there's a whole, you mentioned it, where they get a letter and Beverly Hills is misspelled.
Yeah.
And later he writes out something about Beverly Hills and misspells it. And it's like kind of what puts it. When that happened in the series, I fucking lost my shit.
Yeah.
What?
Did you see? And Janine Pirro, who now is on Fox, she's Judge Janine, and she's like, Donald Trump is the best president ever.
Yeah.
Well, she was a district attorney in Westchester, and she wanted to bring him in, and they just told her he's too powerful. I mean, this family is very, very wealthy. They could afford really good attorneys, and it's very hard when you don't have a body, and nobody really knows. I mean, she could be in, The Sopranos. Like, what's that place in The Sopranos in Jersey? Like the oh, God damn it. Anyway, but she could be,
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like, she's in the woods someplace. Like, she could be anywhere.
Pine Barrens.
She's
in the Pine Barrens.
She could be. That's where a lot of mob stuff happens. She could be up in the mountains. She could be buried under the house. Like, they don't know. But like I said, they didn't go to her home to check things out. It was just he got away with it. And I used to work at 4 Times Square, which was a Durst property. And this was in 2001, 2002, and when he was on the run. And we would all get calls. And they were just like, just don't answer. Just don't.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was bought out by his family in the mid-'90s, if you're wondering how he can support himself. Somewhere around 95 or something, they gave him $60 million to shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's such a fucking creep. You did such a good job on that. Because there is so much. There's so much.
There's so much, and there's so much more times he ran away and did weird shit. It's just like I can't mention them all. And I wanted to actually talk more about Susan and Kathy. I wanted to give them their due, so...
Yeah, good job. Good job. Do you want to hear about some not creeps?
Yes, please.
So I decided to do something a little different this time because I don't know if y'all heard, I broke my elbows. So I'm not doing a lot of typing these days. I decided to go into our Facebook group and pull out a bunch of the not a creeps that y'all have been recommending and give you your shout out and give shout outs to these people. So our listener Gemma Lee, Lee shared that Ryan Reynolds was not a creep. He recently got the Governor's General Award in Canada for all of his excellent work. I thought,
did you see his commercials for the Facts of Life Different Strokes thing?
I did not. How were they?
He has a marketing company, and they redid all these commercials from the 80s, and they put Alphonse Rivera in there and Jennifer Beals.
Nice.
And they're fucking hilarious. They were better than the show.
Nice.
Yeah.
He is. I did not watch it. Did you? So you watched it?
Yeah, it was okay. The commercials were the best part. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. I did not.
Yeah.
I skipped. Also, he's so handsome.
He's fucking fine.
Yeah. Another one, Billy Bragg was shared in our group, who recently has changed a bunch of his old song lyrics to make them trans inclusive.
Cool.
And that was shared by our listener, Joel Wendy.
Oh, Joel's great.
That is a really good one. Rachel, I'm sorry, it looks like it's Rachel Small. Sorry, everybody. Rack Small. She shared Hannah Gadsby is out on tour and she wants everyone to go get her tickets. We've already talked about Hannah Gadsby on the show, but I wanted to mention it again. She's awesome. I love her. Paula Werner shared Julia Child.
Oh, yes.
I love Julia Child.
Julie and Julia. Her. That's a great movie. The Meryl Streep part.
I was just going to say just the Meryl Streep part. I think Julie and Julia is on our dorking out list, and we will do that someday. That movie bums me out because I just want it to be the Meryl Streep part.
That, and it turns out, spoiler, that Julie breaks up with her husband pretty soon after all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what bums me out about it is Meryl Streep is so good as Julia Child, and Stanley Tucci is so good as her husband. And then you get Jane Lynch in there as her sister. Like, that part of the movie so good that I just wanted the whole movie to be that.
Yeah.
And it makes me fucking hate the other half.
And it's Amy Adams in a terrible wig. Like, it's really bad.
It's not good. Let's see. Marcy Elizabeth shared Gordon Ramsay.
Oh, yes.
Apparently, he did an episode of Hotel Hell, and he actually paid for culinary school tuition for one of the kids who worked in the episode, who worked in the hotel that he did. He sent him to culinary school so he could actually get better at his job. That's pretty amazing. And I've heard a lot of good things about Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, he's actually very sweet.
And then Amanda Graham shared Benedict Cumberbatch.
We love him.
Who we love him. His new movie looks really, really good. It's what's it called? It's like The Power of Dog or something like that.
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Yeah. It looks real good. So he recently said that he is only taking on new projects if his female co-stars receive equal pay. Props to fucking that.
Yeah.
Like, thank you, Benedict Cumberbatch. Like, it's awesome that women are standing up for themselves, but we need some men to do the heavy lifting too. So I like it. Who else do we get here? Paula Wern again shared Mick Foley, the Wrestling Hall of Famer. She said that he's just someone who does like a ton of charity work, that he's super generous. I'm like, that's a really good one. And then we got, this is the last one, Renee Jacoby shared Maria Bamford.
Oh, I love Maria Bamford.
Yeah, who actually like posts on her Facebook group like when her shows are coming, and then she says like, if you can't afford it, DM me and I'll put you on the list. What an awesome person to help her fans see her even if they can't afford it. Like, that's really awesome. And I know that she also has a lot of like, she struggles with like anxiety and depression and things like that, and maybe OCD, I think. And she's really open about it. And I think she was on the that Oprah Prince Harry, what was it? The
interview,
one on Apple.
Yeah,
what's this show on Apple? It's like something. Where they talk about people's different issues. I'm sorry, everybody, I can't remember the name, but she's very open about her struggles. And
look up Oprah and Apple, you'll be fine.
And when you share what you're going through publicly like that, you help other people. And I just think that that's awesome. And I love that she makes it so that everybody can come to her shows, whether they can afford it or not, because these shows can be really expensive.
Well, especially if you have to get like a babysitter, and some places have a drink minimum, like a 2-drink minimum on top of the tip, on top of everything else. So that's awesome. Good job, Sonia.
Thank you. These were all excellent suggestions from all of our listeners. I'm really sorry if I messed up your name. I think we all know I am notorious for fucking up everyone's names. It's my thing.
It's her thing, you guys. We can't Sonia not be Sonia.
Sonia got a Sonia.
Yes, yeah, that's it, baby. All right, that's this episode this week. Next week, we're going to have like a regular episode. We're going to have a Canadian creep.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so we're both excited.
Yeah, we are. This one I was working on before my accident, and it's I'm excited to do this one. It's going to be a good one.
We also have a bonus ep coming up, a couple of them coming up with other podcasters, which we're excited about. We have bonus Patreon episodes just for Patreon peeps. That's coming up.
Yes.
It's just wonderful in December for you. So thank you once again, all of you that support us. Please, if you have any suggestions and you want to use social media, we love it when you use the Annie Potts GIF. We got one from Ghostbusters. Also, you can send us an email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And Sonia, where can people find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, where I am posting stuff maybe once a week. And if you like the sound of our voices, you can also find us at dorkingout.com, where we dork out about movies. This week, we're going to do Hard Day's Night. We're going to do the Beatles.
We're all about the Beatles. They had a special on Disney Plus, and it was fucking amazing. I've watched it twice. I will watch it again probably this weekend after my flu shot. I can't wait.
It's so good.
Yeah, Hard Day's Night is really fun. So that's the Dorking Out Show. You can find that wherever you get your podcast. You could find me at Brooklyn Fitchick, mostly for Twitter and Instagram. I don't really do the TikTok, but I'll follow you back if that's where you are. I will check you out. And my site is brooklynfitchick.com. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, watch your elbows, and don't be a creep.
Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.